along the Tóthar Fáraigh yesterday and stopped at the Behe Rock, a very significant artefact compared to Joth and Noth. And they said Mass at the rock. Father Fahey said Mass to wish the Pope's visit well and the whole weekend for it to go well.
OK, for the moment, Anya, thank you very much. And we're going to hand back to Katrina in Dublin.
Thanks, Eileen, and we'll be returning to Knock shortly. We saw there a few moments ago pictures of the plane landing at Ireland West Airport. Those images being relayed to the crowd at Knock Airport, or at Knock Shrine rather, so they are aware that Pope Francis is not too far away at this point in time. And Mick, if I could just turn to you, we saw there a level of excitement building. I mean, this will be meaningful for Knock as well, aside from the Catholics who are interested in attending today.
Oh, it'll certainly bring. It'll certainly will. You know, I think.
And we can just say what we're seeing there. It's a very misty picture, but you can make out the Aer Lingus plane there, which has landed at Ireland West Airport. It is there, yeah.
We were just wondering was it going to land at all in that sort of foggy.
So there is touchdown, quite a miserable looking morning there, but he made it nevertheless.
The thing of it, I suppose, as I said earlier, this is a people's sort of pilgrimage. It's so important to people, Knock, to Catholics in Ireland, Catholics worldwide. It's part of a much bigger international sort of sense that, and a populist sort of faith. But Francis is very much into that kind of touching into people's deep-seated need for tactility. You know, we light candles, we touch. People love to touch statues. They love to pray to Our Lady, to St. Jude, the patron saint of hopeless cases, or whatever. And Francis knows this because his own personal experience has been when he was troubled, when he was in a mess in his own personal life. He prayed to Our Lady, the untier of knots, basically. The image that made sense to him was an image of Our Lady who untied knots in people's lives. And he's, you know, people can identify with that. Irish people identify with this sense of coming to pilgrimage, coming to a place where, when they're in a mess, when they're broken, when they're in pain, and seeking help from something beyond themselves. And that's important. And it's important that that the Pope identifies that and recognises that genuine sense of faith of the people, that it's not something simple and irrelevant or theologically unsound. Now, he's the one who says, no, actually, this is really, really important, because this is where the people are at, and this is where we as a church need to be. And
you can see there the two flags, of course, flying on that Aer Lingus plane, the tricolour and the Vatican flag as well. Linda Hogan, what do you expect the Pope might say at Knock? And he's not there for a very long time. He'll say an Angelus prayer and he'll have some private silent prayer at the shrine itself.
Yes, so I think it is important to remember that unlike some of the events yesterday, which were formal and state-based, this is really a religious experience for St. Francis, and I think that his language and his demeanour is really going to be all about prayerfulness and spirituality. And I think that for Pope Francis, this is something that, as Mick said, people really do connect with the authenticity of the spirituality that Pope Francis displays and that he really embodies. So I think that's really what the event is going to be really all about today. I think he will give a homily, and again, I think that's likely to probably touch on some of the major themes of his papacy and of the concerns of the country, but it will be in a way that is really framed as a sermon, a homily, rather than a formal speech. And the themes that he really constantly highlights are about the inclusion of the marginalised, the dignity of the poor, and we saw that as well at Merchants Quay yesterday, that theme of the inherent dignity of every person, especially those who are excluded and marginalised. I expect that he will convey that not only in his homily but also in the way he meets people and engages with people today.
Father Thomas, Pope Francis, obviously from Argentina, lives in Rome, where you yourself live at the moment, but he's getting a real Irish summer morning weather greeting there, isn't he?
He is indeed. Yesterday he will have been thrilled to have such a lovely dry day, but at a cooler temperature than Rome at the moment goes up to 32 or 33 most afternoons. But yes, he's seeing the other side of Ireland. Rome doesn't do this kind of weather. Rome doesn't do mist or light rain. When it rains, it buckets in Italy. When I first met Pope Francis, which was Christmas Day 2016, just following on from what Linda said and what Mick has been saying, people are asking Pope Francis to be with them, to support them, to pray for them at a time when there are problems, and we've heard a great deal about the problems of so many people who have been mistreated, abused. And when I asked Pope Francis to pray for me that morning, he said, "And you pray for me." And that's precisely eating into what Mick was saying. The Pope is very aware of the difficulty he has within the Vatican of getting meaningful set of regulations and of procedures agreed and up and running, rather than just a set of platitudes and a lack of attention to the crisis.
We're looking at the welcoming party there at Ireland West Airport in Knock, where, as we said, the plane landed just a few moments ago. Everyone's getting lined up there ready to meet him. In the official welcoming party, there's Archbishop Michael Neary, the Archbishop of Tuam, the Bishop of Galway, Brendan Kelly, the Bishop of Killala, Bishop John Fleming, the Bishop of Elphin, Bishop Kevin Doran, and Father Dermot Meehan, who's the diocesan administrator of the Diocese of Achonry, which is without a bishop at the moment, so he's acting up. We see everyone at Knock Shrine there waiting on his arrival as well. Keep the spirits high despite the rain, Max. And the ponchos that are there, the steps we can see are up at the plane at the moment. Any moment now I expect we'll see Pope Francis emerge there.
It's a very exciting day really for the people of the West as well, and for Catholics in Ireland, who often feel under siege at the moment, because, you know, people of faith feel, well, why have you got faith in a church that is corrupt? And I think a lot of people feel personally taken aback by that, and this is a very exciting day for people in the west of Ireland themselves, and the church in the west of Ireland, who often doesn't get a look in either, you know, and so I think you see the bishops waiting there, the Archbishop Michael Neary and the various bishops. It's very significant for them, for their church, that he comes to them, you know, and I think this is a very important time. That he's taken the time out to come to visit this part of Ireland, which a lot of them feel forgotten.
Very true.
You know.
And in these matters, I'm from Galway, as you know. Yeah. You know, Galway unites itself and rejoices in Mayo's days of joy and days of glory, and the entire West feels involved in this and somehow lauded and finally recognised, as it were. Well, if the Pope comes, we must mean something.
We are something. Yeah.
And not just one, but two.
Yeah. He's taking his time coming out. Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the stairs are correctly lined there. I think we could see from a shot a little earlier, though, the back stairs, the back door is open, and a rain protective tunnel has been put up there. So, not sure now if somebody will greet the Pope with an umbrella or not. The welcoming party well in place there anyway. When he does emerge, then of course he'll drive to Knock Shrine. We don't have helicopter pictures today because of the weather, in fact, at the moment. So we'll just wait and see what happens there. Linda, this will have, though, great, perhaps a sense of reinvigoration for people in that area and firmly put the Shrine of Knock on the world religious map. It's
yes.
there already, but...
Yes, I think it will. I think that there will be a sense of reinvigoration, particularly for the people who are there. And I think we saw in the Vox Pop earlier how important and meaningful it was for the people to be there.
Oh, we can see him at the top of the stairs there.
I think it will be very significant for everybody who's there.
He takes off the skull cap in case it blows away. It's blown away so often on him.
It's a high risk this morning anyway. Away for the assembled crowd.
You know, yesterday was a remarkable day for an 81-year-old man. An early morning rise in Rome, and there he was preaching in the late evening in Croke Park, and preaching with gusto and with energy and humour during the latter part of the homily particularly. And as you said, Katrina, I hope he got some decent sleep before taking on this second and final day of the tour, involving Knock and then involving, of course, the much larger crowd in the Phoenix Park later on for the Eucharist.
He's being greeted by some local school children there. In fact, 100 local school children have gathered at the airport there at Knock to greet him as part of the welcoming party. As you can see, all the bishops gathered there on the greeting line.
It's interesting, the Italian greeting he receives there, and also
yes.
the reverential aspect of it's not there anymore, where, you know, people used to get them kiss his ring and everything, and he doesn't want that kind of reverence.
It was noticeable how few people kissed the ring yesterday, wasn't it?
And he's giving out Vatican rosary beads, which, you know, with great memento for children to have in the future, for their children to say, he gave me these. But yes, it is extraordinary that reverence, he's not interested in reverence and respect for the sake of his office as such.
That's right. I think the informality of his interactions with people all day yesterday and again this morning was really from the time he stepped off the plane in Dublin Airport and greeted Minister Coveney and his family. You could see that there was a very personable interaction, and also as he went through the day, you can see it again now. He takes time with people, he talks to each person, and he engages
special blessing
with them.
over rosary beads there.
Rosary beads there.
That's the 100 school children there from the local schools ready to greet him as well. And we could see just behind the Pope exiting the aircraft as well, the papal nuncio and Archbishop Dermot Martin and the entourage essentially that will accompany the Pope throughout today as they did yesterday. So
one of the happiest faces yesterday was Emma Madigan, the Irish ambassador to the Holy See, you know.
Yeah, and there seemed to be a warm rapport between her and the Pope there. You can see the Pope greeting the various bishops that are there. Yeah, Archbishop Michael Neary, the Archbishop of Tuam, Brendan Kelly, the Bishop of Galway.
And that's John Fleming.
John Fleming, the Bishop of Killala.
John Kirby.
Kevin Doran, as we said, and Father Dermot Meehan, who's the diocesan administrator of the Diocese of Achonry. Very special moment for all of these people, isn't it, to have this personal interaction with Pope Francis?
Absolutely. I think, again, I mean, everyone remembers Pope John Paul II. If they shook his hand, my goodness, they nearly put their hand away for prosperity. So, I mean, what people will say in the future about Pope Francis and meeting him, seeing him even. And the children and the people who are weak and the people who are sick, he always moving towards them. He's
special blessing for those young boys. There's a sense of warmth and affinity with young people as well. I mean, we saw that yesterday on Sean McDermott Street, that he made a beeline for the young people there. And again at the Festival of Families last night, when several people had the opportunity to meet him personally.
It's almost as if he has a personal feeling for the world that they're going to grow up in is going to be a difficult world for them, because he wants to help create a better world for them. create awareness of things that need to be, of injustice, of inclusion. And I mean, I suppose the sexual abuse thing is when those people are hurt, the whole world is hurt, the church is hurt.
And the airport staff there as well, getting a special handshake. He's been quite generous with his time here, actually, at the airport.
I'm sure the entourage are saying to, looking at their watches and saying, you need to get into Knock quick.
Yeah, because it's quite a busy day. I mean, the visit to the shrine itself is quite short. There are concerns about keeping all of that moving, because obviously there are 500,000 people waiting for him at the Phoenix Park later on.
It's extraordinary that when I did a lot of research about him, he wasn't a man who smiled very much. He had a sourpuss, what he used to say himself. And I mean, we all know him as a man who smiles. Something dramatically happened to him in his life that caused a turnaround, a complete shift in attitude in his life. And they put it down to things about that it might be his devotion to Our Lady. That's one of the things. That he also realised his own weakness, and in his own weakness he can't overcome his own problems, which was an authoritarian leader. That he needs to be much more humble. And I think he actively worked on himself to start smiling, to take on a different way of leadership.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about Pope Francis, is that his story is so well known, and it is a story of somebody who was quite authoritarian, harsh, quite controversial in his leadership of the Jesuits in Argentina, and through a series of experiences and, as you say, working on himself and thinking about how he was acting, he actually changed not only his way of being, but also many of his ideas, his way of behaving, his way of leading. So I think that's one of, and of course the fact that he speaks about this and he's open about it and reflects on it is something that I think allows people to connect with him as well.
And he seems to be shaking the hand of almost every person that's on the tarmac there. I mean, he made a second tour past the school children. Yeah, the Gardaí. There's quite a lovely moment there a moment ago. The young girl had her own rosary beads. Yeah,
and he gave her the thumbs up.
Yeah.
You know, are you praying the rosary? Thumbs up.
Every single person is practically getting a handshake there. And he, as you were saying, he does seem to be quite enjoying himself. I suppose it's a very mixed visit. He's had to deal with a lot of pain and hurt and anger, but then there are these joyous moments as well.
And as both Linda and Mick have been saying, you know, repentance and reform and seeing I need to change my ways has been part of his growth, part of his development, culminating in the role of Bishop of Rome. And certainly echoing what Mick was saying and what you were saying also, Katrina, in relation to the joy of people meeting him. I get a chance to see him in Rome on Christmas Day and on Easter Sunday, and I have a few personal moments with him, but I never lose the excitement of it. It's never some
doesn't grow old.
Blasé. No. There are special moments which invigorate me, and I know that that's what's happened yesterday in Dublin as well, with the various meetings and with the Pope Mobile going around the city.
Of course, he's not in the Pope Mobile now. He's in this specially kitted out Skoda, which has its own Vatican reg plate as well.
Yes, it has. Every vehicle that he uses, whether it's a Pope Mobile or a Skoda car, has the same registration plate, SCV1, Stato Città Vaticano Uno.
And the symbolism of that for people, but it's genuine, and that's the extraordinary thing about him, in the sense that the symbolism is travelling in a simple car. He doesn't wear the red shoes of the Pope. You know, he's a simple man.
And there he is. The journey begins from Ireland West Airport to the shrine at Knock. And a final wave there from those very excited, very lucky school children. That'll be a special moment for them. I'm sure it was well caught on camera, and selfies and whatnot that they'll have for many years to come. And we are back at the Knock Shrine there, where they are awaiting his arrival. News will filter through that he's now on his way, making that short journey to the shrine.
Pope Francis had replaced the skull cap on his head, so whatever about the pictures we're seeing, and we've seen rain and mist, perhaps it's not as windy as as earlier.
Yeah.
You can see some umbrellas are managed to get through the security.
It's a great endorsement for people as well, just for their own sense of faith and purpose, that this man comes to them. An endorsement of their own personal beliefs, be they simple, you know, that he's actually welcoming them too. They're welcoming him, but he's actually saying, you're okay.
And the people we're seeing there, of course, have made quite the journey to get there. I mean, 45,000 tickets sold out within a matter of moments. There were reports of 6 and 8 kilometre tailbacks on the roads to the various parking facilities earlier today. So it's quite the pilgrimage.
When he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he was very much endorsed. It's similar, it's the Argentinian equivalent of NOC, it's Luján. It's a pilgrimage to Luján where 6 million people, Argentina, go every year. But he used those occasions to preach a very, very strong message to governments, particularly the Argentinian government, about inclusion, about economy, about people, about the need to include the people on the margins. So Marian shrines to him are very important occasions to preach the message that the people that many of us think don't matter, are more important to God than anyone else.
And I think the symbolism of the Skoda really does fit into that, and I think many people have wondered about, you know, whether this is a genuine simplicity that he has. But as Mika said, really all through his ministry as Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he really always lived this very simple life, and it is something very authentic, and it connects with the preaching that he does. So it's not only symbols and gestures, but also words and actions, and I think that's really what people do connect with Pope Francis. It's the authenticity of the words, always backed up by the actions.
And Father Thomas, when Pope Francis does arrive at the shrine here, he will say the Angelus prayer, but he'll also have a period of silent reflection inside the shrine himself. We're told perhaps 10 to 14 minutes, something like that.
These will be particularly strong moments of reflection for all who are watching, as well as for those who are actually there in Knock, participating with the Pope and entering with him into moments of deep reflection and quiet contemplation, when everything that has been bothering you comes all at once into your mind and head, and can be, if you like, mixed in with a sense of faith, a sense of trust. The inclusion, a deliberate and emphasized inclusion of the poor and the weak by Pope Francis, is of course a biblical theme going back to the Anawim of the Lord. But